One of the most asked questions I get from principals and school leaders is around the idea of virtual assemblies. These are basically, most schools would have a weekly assembly during normal times where all the children would come into the hall together and songs would be sung and news would be given and awards would be given out and everything else. But obviously, with COVID-19, this was no longer possible. And during the first lockdown, our school were the first school in the country to host a virtual assembly. And we did this in March, and we've been doing a weekly assembly since then, even when we came back to school, because we weren't obviously allowed to still host real assemblies due to the measures for COVID-19. So the children sat in their classrooms and we hopped up the virtual assemblies, and every week we carried on as normal. Now we're back in lockdown number two, and it's back to virtual assemblies where the children will be sitting in their homes. I wanted to tell you, what I did in our assembly and maybe how you could go about it yourself. Our assemblies, I mean, the main thing for me was to keep it as close to what a real assembly was going to be like. So effectively, I would generally have led almost all the assemblies in my own school. I'd welcome the children. We'd sing the school song. Now, I wouldn't recommend you sing the school song virtually. You'll have about 350 different voices at 300 different times. And but sure, some schools actually do that, and it's a bit of crack. So what we generally do is we might just play the school song, or a bit of it anyway, because nobody wants to be listening to the full school song on a screen. Depending on your school song, I suppose. In our school, what we did was I asked the children and the families to send in photographs of the activities they were doing at home that week, and we played the school song or a song over a slideshow of that. So I developed a slideshow, and I played that to pass the time. So basically, we got to hear the school song, or a song anyway, and also a recap of all the different things that people were doing throughout the week. So it was quite a nice, minute or two of a photo collage. After we did that, I gave a little message to everybody. Nothing fancy, just telling them what was happening that week, any news that was in the school. Now, during this lockdown, no one's going anywhere and no one's doing anything, but maybe just some of the highlights of what might be going on, or if there was a special week that was on at the time. So, for example, when we come up to the end of this month, we'll be starting spring. So, some of you might talk about St. Bridget's Day, if that's something that your school does. Others might be celebrating the Chinese New Year, which is coming up. So again, you might talk about some sort of event, or whatever it might be. Now, what we decided against, what we do in our assemblies, is we generally give awards to students. So each class teacher would pick a student of the week for various reasons, or whatever it might be. There might be rewards. We decided not to do that in our virtual assemblies. We thought it wasn't really fair, because many of our families can't interact with us during this time, and in a way, we felt it was. I suppose it wasn't very good for equality and so on. So we scrapped that bit. But a couple of, just to replace those kind of things, we would have, one of the things I would have done is I gave a weekly challenge to the children, which you might consider. So every week I would give a challenge that they might complete. They might have to email me a picture of, I don't know, let's say I did, the most popular one I did during the first lockdown was a virtual pizza party. So everybody was challenged to make a pizza. They had a week to make a pizza and share the recipe. And I made a little recipe book and shared it with them after that. So just a little challenge might be nice. Now, again, no pressure for people. People are under enough pressure, but it might be very useful. And really, that was kind of it. And then I kind of, basically told them, right, everyone, we can all say goodbye to each other. And I unmuted all the mics, and there was chaos, and it was great. And everyone got to see each other. Everyone got to talk to their friends for a few seconds or whatever, to let it all out of their system. And that was really it. And everyone was welcome to the assembly: parents, children, anyone who was able to make it. Now, um, that was really the structure of it. How we actually did it, we used Zoom, like most schools are using. Now, the problem with Zoom is it has a limit on the number of participants that can come to a class or to an assembly. So in our school, we're a reasonably big school, with nearly 400 children. We then had to pay for Zoom. In order to be able to do that, and Zoom changes its pricing every so often. It's changed this year. Last year it was possible. So if you have up to 300 pupils in your school, you may have to pay an annual license there of just under €200, which isn't too bad, I don't think. If you're a small school of under 100 pupils, it's free. We'd obviously be in the bigger area there, so we're going to be looking at a higher price. So again, you can add up to 500 or to 1,000 people, so we'll be looking at about €558 a year. So I mean, you're talking that it's not a madly cheap thing to do, but it was such a highlight for everybody's week. It was probably worth it. For a small school, obviously, it's a no-brainer. It's free. For a slightly big school, I mean, €200 for a year really is very little, I would say. You might be thinking about it if you're a bit bigger than that. You don't have to use Zoom though. There are other options, particularly if people are uncomfortable with the children's faces being on screen, because one of the nice things that I felt about the Zoom was that everybody's face is on the screen. But that might not suit your school. You might prefer just to address people without everyone seeing each other. And one of the best tools for that, to be honest with you, is Facebook Live, and if you have it, YouTube Live, where you can basically send a link to everybody to tune into your Facebook feed, to your school's Facebook feed, and go live at a particular time, and anyone can pop in and out. The disadvantage, I suppose, of a Facebook Live is anybody in the world, not just your school community, can tune into that, which I guess would have some potential security concerns, although very little. I can't think of too many people that like your school's Facebook page who would come to your assembly unless they were actually involved in the school. We did it the first time and it worked quite well, but I did miss actually seeing the faces of the children and their families as well. YouTube Live would be very much the same. Again, you send a link to everyone with where to go at a particular time, and you basically go live. Obviously, if you're using Microsoft Teams or Google Meet, you can use those options. I just feel, or I've experienced with Google Meet anyway, if you have a large number of people at a Google Meet, it sometimes can't take the pressure, let's say, of the bandwidth. So, look, I think it's worth the price of Zoom, to be honest with you, to host these assemblies. I'd go for it if you can, and if you can convince your board to go for it. It's a really special time in the week. You get to share you get to share with each other some lovely things. Some of you might be brave enough to get the children to present something to you. That's an option, that you could get a class to make a presentation, and a teacher might thank you for that, or not. Other things that we did was we went through people's birthdays. After a while, we share, when we wished everybody a lá brethas on a díobh, so we sang that together, or at least I sang it on my own on my couch, which I'm sure burst the eardrums of many a house. But the thing is, it's very easy to do. I usually had a little PowerPoint slide, so I shared my screen as well. That's a nice little tip as well. So hopefully that helps you out. And listen, if you have any questions around virtual assemblies, Simon at onshaw.net, and I'd be very happy to help you. Thanks very much for watching.